My name is Tim Counts. This is Communications 110, Introduction to Speech, Speech 1. Note cards for today's speech are here. Unfortunately, there will be no audience due to the ongoing global pandemic. One of the seven wonders of the world, a modern marvel of engineering, and a path between the seas. The Panama Canal is one of the most widely recognized engineering projects and products of the 20th and the 21st century. It has a long storied history from the 19th century and the French attempts all the way up through the 21st century and present day. So let's start in 1880. Ferdinand de Lesseps, a Frenchman, is tasked with constructing a canal through the Isthmus of Panama. He was selected because of the great success he had constructing a canal through the Middle East, the Suez Canal, connecting the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, according to Vanderhook in 2010. His success of the Suez Canal gained Ferdinand de Lesseps great fame and notoriety, not only in France, but throughout Europe and the world. He was known as a guy who could get stuff done, which is why he was the obvious choice for this project. Some of the oversights, however, that led to the eventual unsuccessfulness of his attempts to construct the canal through the isthmus. First, he attempted to construct the Panama Canal the same way he had done the Suez Canal, that being a sea level, without employing locks or any elevation changes. That's according to Hall in 2010. Some of the things he failed to consider with that approach was the terrain is significantly different through the isthmus, much more mountainous and treacherous than it was through mainly desert in the Middle East, where he constructed the Suez Canal. The weather. In Panama, there are two seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. 9 months out of the year, it rains every single day, and a substantial amount, which obviously leads to landslides, mudslides, and flooding, which are a problem for construction, not only while the weather is taking place, but the after effects also. Two other issues he had, the first of which was disease. They did not account for, and there's no way to account for, the massive amount of loss of life that took place during the French attempt to construct the canal. Tens of thousands of lives lost to malaria and yellow fever. His financial backing was another issue, because in the beginning he was able to get all the money he needed because of his name. However, as the project was delayed and they ran into costs and issues that they had not anticipated, he started to lose some of that backing. Near the end, he started to basically crowdfund his project with the people of France, selling shares and stock in the Panama Canal Company. Basically, when the project eventually failed, a lot of those folks lost their money, and it was a huge detriment to the economy in France at the time. So 1889, the French attempt fails. Ferdinand de Lesseps and his crew pack up and head back to France. So let's jump forward about a decade to the United States presidential administration of Theodore Roosevelt. During his first term in office, one of his main goals was to construct a canal through Central America to more readily move the Navy, the naval fleet, from the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. One of the first decisions that had to be made was whether to build the canal through Nicaragua or Panama. Panama was selected because they got a deal. With the progress the French had already made and the equipment that was left behind, that was the selected site. The first big issue that they had to deal with, though, according to Lapierre in 2018, was gain Panama its independence from Colombia. At the time, Panama was under Colombian rule. Colombia had no desire to construct a canal through the isthmus, and certainly no intent of having any kind of treaties with the United States. So the United States helped the people of Panama and the revolution to gain independence from Colombia. As soon as that was complete, the treaty was signed, and in 1904, construction began on the new Panama Canal. One of the first things that they did, after having learned the lesson from the French, and this is according to the Funk and Wagnall's Encyclopedia in 2018, was cleanse the site, essentially try to eradicate the best they could the malaria and yellow fever that had such a detrimental effect on the workers and employees during the French attempt to construct the canal. So that was their first mission. Within a year, they were very successful. Most of the malaria and yellow fever cases were non-existent. and it wasn't an issue for the American attempt at constructing the canal. The second thing that they did was they employed a different design than the French had done. Instead of attempting to make a sea level canal, they decided to dam the Chagres River, which has been a big obstacle for the French, create what at the time was the world's largest man-made lake, Lake Gatun, right in the middle of Panama. And then they constructed locks from the Pacific and Atlantic side. So when a ship arrived, it went up 3 steps, got into the canal, and Lake Gatun went across and then down 3 steps to the other side. So the design was much different than the French, which is also what aided in their success. So on August 15th, 1914, the Panama Canal is officially open after 10 years of construction by the United States, and the SS Ancon is the first ship to make the historic voyage from one side to the other. Fast forward nearly a century to the December 31st, 1999, the United States hands the keys over to the Panamanians as a result of the Jimmy Carter and Omar Torrijos agreement in the 1970s. That's according to The World and I, volume 14 from 1999. The Panamanians had a couple of goals. They wanted to make money with the canal. The United States had never charged for passage, and so the Panamanians saw it as a way to stimulate their economy. So they started charging for passage to get through the canal. They also recognized that they needed to do an expansion. Their current canal was not capable of moving through the larger ships that were now being constructed. So in 2007, construction started on the expansion of the Panama Canal, where they added a 3rd set of locks. Previously, there were 2 sets of locks. Think of it like a 2-lane highway. They added a 3rd lane that was much larger to accommodate the bigger ships. A couple of the interesting features, they had sliding doors instead of swing doors like the original canal had. And they also employed water-saving basins to try and recycle some of the water. Panama Canal is entirely gravity operated. There are no pumps involved. So recycling the water helps not lose as much from the lake after every passage. So that's the Panama Canal and the history of its construction, during, and the expansion in the 21st century. The canal helps move goods back and forth across the world and is probably a bigger part of all of our lives than we realize. Thanks.